Have you ever faced a choice so impossible, so soul-crushing, that it felt like your very essence was on trial? A moment where every fiber of your being screamed in protest, yet a deeper, more primal instinct compelled you forward. This isn't just a hypothetical question. For countless individuals around the globe, such agonizing dilemmas are not abstract philosophical debates, but the stark, brutal reality of survival. It's in these moments of profound desperation that the lines between right and wrong blur, and the human spirit is pushed to its absolute breaking point, revealing both its incredible fragility and its astonishing capacity for resilience. Today we delve into one such story, a story that transcends the boundaries of a simple narrative to become a powerful exploration of sacrifice, stigma, and the unwavering quest for dignity. It's the journey of a young woman named Amara, whose life was irrevocably altered by a single, desperate night, setting her on a path she could never have foreseen. Her tale isn't just about what she did, but about the harrowing circumstances that led her to do it, the unseen battles she fought, and the remarkable transformation that emerged from the ashes of her despair. So stay with us, because Amara's story is far more than just a testament to one person's struggle. It's a mirror reflecting universal truths about poverty, exploitation, and the enduring strength of the human heart. In the quiet, unassuming confines of their humble one-room dwelling, Amara's world was anything but peaceful. The night air, thick with the scent of impending tragedy, did little to soothe the relentless cough that racked her mother's frail body. Each gasp, each ragged breath, echoed like a death knell in the small space, tightening the invisible knot of fear that had taken root in Amara's chest. A single kerosene lamp, a sputtering sentinel against the encroaching darkness, cast dancing shadows on the cracked mud walls, making the dire reality of their situation even more stark. Amara knelt beside her mother, her fingers tracing the contours of a face etched with pain, pressing a damp cloth to a forehead burning with fever. "Mama, please, just a sip of water," she whispered, her voice a fragile plea against the silence. But her mother, weakened by illness, could manage only a faint turn of her head, the effort proving too much. Amara's heart, already bruised by years of hardship, fractured a little more. She was only 22, yet life had already burdened her with the weight of decades. Since her father's passing years ago, she had been the sole provider, the only barrier between her small family and the unforgiving abyss of destitution. She toiled relentlessly, her hands calloused from selling vegetables under the scorching sun, scrubbing clothes for meager wages, cleaning shops until her back ached. Every day was a relentless pursuit of a few more naira, a desperate struggle to keep the wolf from their door. Yet, no matter how hard she pushed, how much she sacrificed, it was never enough. That very evening, the landlord's harsh knock had reverberated through their fragile home, a chilling pronouncement of their imminent homelessness. "Amara, this is your last warning," he had boomed, his voice devoid of empathy. "Pay your rent or leave my house." He stormed off, his words hanging in the air like an executioner's decree, leaving Amara no chance to beg, no room for negotiation. Now, sitting beside her ailing mother, the walls of their small house seemed to shrink, trapping her in a suffocating embrace of bills, hunger, and sickness. These enemies surrounded her, relentless and unforgiving. "Mama," she whispered, tears blurring her vision, "please don't leave me. I will find a way, I promise." Her mother, summoning a flicker of her old strength, forced a faint smile. "My daughter, don't kill yourself because of me. If God says my time has come, then so be it." But Amara vehemently shook her head. "No, Mama, don't talk like that. I will save you." This wasn't just a promise. It was a vow etched into her very soul, a desperate declaration of defiance against a fate she refused to accept. The depth of her love for her mother was boundless, but in that moment it also became an immense, crushing burden. The next morning, driven by a fierce primal resolve, Amara rose before the first hint of dawn. The world was still shrouded in a hushed slumber, but for Amara, there was no rest. She carefully arranged her small basket of tomatoes and peppers, each ripe fruit a miniature beacon of fading hope, and began the long, arduous trek to the market. The sun, a merciless orb in the sky, soon beat down upon her, its heat a constant oppressive companion. She sat all day, her voice growing hoarse as she called out to passers-by, her pleas echoing mostly unheard. Business was abysmal. Many walked past, their gazes averted, as if her poverty was contagious. By evening, her efforts had yielded only a few naira, a sum barely sufficient to buy a meager portion of gari, a staple food that offered little comfort. She trudged back home, exhaustion a heavy cloak wrapped around her weary body. The sight that greeted her at home was a fresh stab to her already wounded heart. Her mother was still racked by coughs, her frail body trembling with fever. Amara, clinging to the only remedies she knew, boiled water, mixing it with potent herbs. But she knew, deep down, that it was a futile gesture. What her mother desperately needed was proper hospital care, not these small, inadequate home remedies. But proper hospital care meant money, a vast, insurmountable sum that might as well have been a galaxy away. Later that night, unable to find solace indoors, Amara sat outside their house, her gaze fixed on the distant, indifferent moon. Her stomach ached with hunger, a familiar companion, but the gnawing emptiness was nothing compared to the terror of losing her mother. She recalled the doctor she had encountered at the local clinic weeks ago, his words a chilling echo in her mind. "Bring her quickly. She needs tests and real medicine." Those words, though delivered with professional urgency, carried an unspoken caveat. But only if you have the money. And money, she had none. As she sat immersed in her despair, her neighbor, Kem, strolled by. Kem was a woman who always seemed to defy their shared reality of poverty. Dressed in shiny new clothes, a fashionable handbag slung over her shoulder, she exuded an air of effortless prosperity. People whispered about Kem, their hushed tones laced with both envy and suspicion, wondering about the mysterious source of her wealth. "Kai, Amara," Kem said, stopping abruptly when she noticed Amara's downcast face. "Why do you always look so worried? You carry the world on your shoulders." Amara sighed deeply, the weight of her burdens momentarily overcoming her usual reserve. "It's Mama, Kem. She's getting worse. I don't know how to get the money for hospital bills. I feel completely helpless." Kem was quiet for a moment, her expression shifting. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, Amara, there are ways to make quick money if you are brave enough. Not every money comes from selling tomatoes, my sister." Amara frowned, a ripple of unease stirring within her. "What do you mean, Kem?" Kem glanced around, a practiced survey to ensure no one was listening, then continued, her words painting a stark, unsettling picture. "There are rich men in this city who spend money on girls. One night with them, and you can clear all your bills. I even know one billionaire. He pays heavily." The words hung in the air, a venomous temptation, a shocking proposition. "With just one night, Amara, your mother will be in the hospital tomorrow, receiving the best treatment." The words struck Amara with the force of a physical blow. She stared at Kem, her mind reeling, unable to process what she was hearing. "You mean, sleep with a stranger for money?" Kem nodded, her face devoid of shame, utterly pragmatic. "Yes, Amara. It may sound dirty, it may sound wrong, but sometimes desperate times demand desperate actions. Think about it. Do you want your mother to die?" Amara's heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to reject the thought, to lash out at Kem, to uphold the dignity she had so fiercely guarded. But as much as she recoiled from the idea, the haunting image of her mother, racked by coughs on the worn mat, relentlessly returned to her mind. Her empty market basket, a cruel symbol of her failures, the angry landlord, a specter of looming homelessness, the doctor's urgent warning, a constant reminder of time running out. All of them pressed down on her, a suffocating weight that threatened to crush her spirit. That night, as her mother drifted in a weak, restless sleep, Amara lay awake on the hard floor, tears silently soaking her pillow. The question Kem had posed earlier now echoed relentlessly in her mind. Could she truly sell her body, her innocence, to save her mother's life? Was this truly the only path left? By dawn, exhaustion had not brought answers, only a crushing heaviness in her heart and a painful, undeniable truth. Life was not going to offer her a miracle. She was left with an impossible choice: preserve her dignity and watch her mother slowly fade away, or sacrifice herself, endure the unimaginable, to keep her alive. She closed her eyes, a silent prayer escaping her lips. God forgive me, but I cannot let Mama go. And so, with a whisper of resignation and a profound sense of despair, the harrowing road to her painful choice began. The sun had barely begun its ascent when Amara awoke, her eyes red and swollen from a night spent in silent anguish. She sat by her mother's side, each rasping cough, each strained breath, a fresh cut to her soul. She desperately wanted to flee, to erase Kem's words from her memory, but reality, a cruel and persistent tormentor, refused to release its grip. The pile of unpaid bills, the landlord's looming threat, the chilling presence of death itself, all waited at their door, demanding action. By afternoon, Kem returned, her phone clutched in her hand, her face serious, almost businesslike. "It is settled," she announced, her voice lowered, devoid of any emotional nuance. "He wants to see you tonight." Amara's stomach twisted into a knot of cold dread. "So soon?" she managed to croak. Kem let out a short, mirthless laugh. "Rich men don't wait, Amara. If you want help, this is your chance. Don't spoil it." Amara nodded slowly, a tremor running through her body. She felt like a lamb being led to slaughter. But the boundless love for her mother, a love more potent than any fear, propelled her forward. That evening, Kem reappeared, carrying a small, neatly wrapped bag. She placed it gently in Amara's lap. "Wear this," Kem instructed. "You must look neat when you meet him." Amara opened the bag, her fingers tracing the unfamiliar fabric of a simple yet beautiful gown, accompanied by a pair of heels. She touched the material as if it were something sacred, forbidden. Never in her life had she worn anything so fine, so far removed from the rough cotton of her daily wrapper. "But I can't walk in these shoes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kem shrugged, utterly unfazed. "You will learn tonight." As darkness descended, Amara bathed quickly, her movements slow and deliberate, dressing in a heavy, contemplative silence. When she gazed into the cracked mirror, she almost didn't recognize the reflection staring back. The poor market girl, the one constantly battling dust and despair, seemed to have vanished. In her place stood a young woman, adorned for a world she did not belong to, a world that was about to demand an unbearable price. Her mother stirred on the mat, a fresh wave of coughing breaking the stillness. Amara knelt beside her, grasping her frail hand. "Mama, forgive me," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "I'm doing this for you." Her mother, too weak to offer a verbal response, managed only a faint, knowing nod. Soon Kem led her outside, where a sleek black car, its polished surface gleaming under the nascent streetlights, waited silently. The driver, a figure of silent efficiency, opened the door, and Amara, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs, slid into the luxurious leather seat. Never had she experienced such comfort, such opulence. The city lights, a blur of vibrant colors, rushed past as the car transported them to the designated meeting place. Amara stared out the window, her mind a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. She longed to run, to jump out and flee, but her mother's pale, suffering face was indelibly etched in her mind, a powerful anchor holding her captive. Finally, the car glided to a halt in front of a towering hotel, its facade ablaze with lights, shining like a modern-day palace. Guards, stiff and formal, bowed respectfully as the car entered the grand driveway. Amara's mouth fell open slightly. She'd only ever seen such places in glossy magazines or Hollywood movies. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of fresh roses and expensive polish. Marble floors stretched endlessly before her, polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the dazzling sparkle of chandeliers hanging like celestial jewels above. She felt impossibly small, utterly out of place, walking beside Kem in her borrowed finery. They entered a private lounge where two men in impeccably tailored suits stood waiting, their expressions unreadable. One of them nodded at Kem. "She's the girl?" Kem confirmed with a brief nod. "Yes." "Good, follow me." He led Amara down a hushed, opulent corridor, then opened a heavy, ornate door into a lavish suite. Gold curtains cascaded down the walls, glass tables gleamed, and soft, almost imperceptible music drifted through the air. Everything in the room screamed of unimaginable wealth. And there he was, the billionaire. He sat in a plush armchair, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, sipping from a delicate glass. His wristwatch, a dazzling constellation of diamonds, glittered like fire on his wrist. His eyes, cold and appraising, slowly studied Amara, like a predator observing its prey, weighing its value. Amara's knees felt weak, threatening to buckle beneath her. She dropped her gaze, unable to meet his intense stare. "So, this is the girl," he said, his voice calm, yet heavy with an undeniable power. "Come closer." Amara obeyed, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm against her eardrums. Every cell in her body screamed for her to flee, to run screaming from this gilded cage, but her legs, as if detached from her will, carried her forward. He offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Do not fear. You need help, and I give help, but nothing is free in this world." Amara's chest tightened, the words confirming the grim truth she already knew. Tonight, her innocence, her very being, would be traded for her mother's life. The sound of her own heartbeat resonated loudly in her ears, a deafening accompaniment to her internal turmoil. The world of crushing poverty, her familiar oppressive reality, seemed impossibly far away. The world of unimaginable wealth lay before her, but the price of entry was a night she knew, with chilling certainty, she would never, ever forget. She closed her eyes, a silent prayer escaping her lips. "Mama, this is for you." The room was consumed by an unsettling silence, broken only by the soft, almost inaudible hum of the air conditioner. Amara stood rigid near the heavy door, her palms slick with sweat, her body stiff and unyielding like a piece of ancient wood. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, taking another slow sip from his glass of wine. His eyes, devoid of any discernible emotion, remained fixed on her. "You know why you're here," he stated calmly, his voice flat, almost robotic. "Please me and you'll get what you need." Amara's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Her every instinct screamed at her to turn, to wrench open the door, to run blindly into the night and never look back. But then, an image, sharp and vivid, seared itself into her mind. Her mother's weak, rattling cough, the profound struggle to swallow a simple spoonful of pap that very morning, the chest that seemed to vibrate with every agonizing breath. That single harrowing picture acted as an invisible force, nailing Amara to the spot, making escape utterly impossible. She forced herself to nod, her throat too constricted, too tight with fear and shame, to utter a single word. The billionaire rose from his chair, his movements smooth and deliberate, and closed the distance between them. The rich, heavy scent of his cologne enveloped her, an oppressive cloud that filled her nose and lungs. He looked at her, not as a person, but like a man meticulously examining property he had just acquired, assessing its value, its features, its yield. He said nothing more, only gestured for her to follow. Amara's feet felt like lead, impossibly heavy, yet they moved. Her mind screamed a desperate, visceral no, but her body, a mere vessel of her will, obeyed. She thought of her mother again, a silent mantra echoing in her heart. "Mama, forgive me. This is for you." The night stretched on, an eternity of silent agony. She did not resist, offered no argument, no plea. She only let the tears fall, hot and relentless, tracing paths down her cheeks, praying with every fiber of her being for the hours to rush by, for dawn to break, for this nightmare to end. To him, it was merely routine, another transaction, just another girl, another forgotten night. To Amara, it was the death of her pride, the erasure of her innocence, a wound that would never fully heal. Every second of that endless night felt like a sharp blade, cutting deep into her very soul. But she endured. She had to. At last, it was over. Amara lay on the extreme edge of the large, opulent bed, her back turned towards him, her face soaked with tears that refused to stop flowing. The billionaire rose, adjusted his shirt with a detached air, and poured himself another drink. His expression remained utterly calm, utterly untouched, as if nothing of consequence had transpired. On the gleaming glass table, he placed a thick, brown envelope. "Your payment," he stated flatly, his voice devoid of warmth. "Take it and leave in the morning." Amara slowly sat up, her hands trembling uncontrollably as she reached for the envelope. She didn't bother to count the money. The sheer weight of the bundles of notes told her all she needed to know. It was enough. Enough to transport her mother to the hospital, enough to buy food, enough to silence the landlord's threats for a while. She clutched the envelope against her chest, a silent whisper escaping her lips. "Mama, I've saved you." But the fleeting relief did little to erase the profound shame that enveloped her. She felt used, broken, and hollowed out, an empty shell. No amount of money, she knew, could ever restore what had been irrevocably lost that night. Still, she clung to the grim justification, a desperate lifeline. It was worth it because her mother's life mattered more than her own dignity, more than her own shattered pride. The night stretched on, endless and sleepless. She sat hunched in a corner of the lavish room, her arms wrapped tightly around the envelope, a strange mixture of treasure and torment. She stared blankly at the ornate floor, waiting for the first tentative fingers of morning light to creep through the heavy curtains. When dawn finally arrived, a soft knock echoed at the door. It was the driver. Amara rose quickly, shed the borrowed gown for her old wrapper and slippers, and slipped out of the suite without a single word, leaving behind the opulent prison and the ghost of her innocence. She carried the envelope like a precious treasure, though in her heart it felt heavy with an unbearable sorrow. The drive back home was quiet, a stark contrast to the previous night's frantic journey. The city streets were slowly awakening, traders setting out their wares, buses honking impatiently, children scurrying with their school bags. Life, in its indifferent cruelty, went on as if nothing had happened, as if the world hadn't turned on its axis for one desperate young woman. But for Amara, everything had changed. She stepped out of the car near her compound, clutching the envelope tightly against her chest. Neighbors, their faces a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled judgment, watched her, whispering amongst themselves. But Amara ignored them all. She hurried inside where her mother still lay weakly on the mat. Amara knelt by her side, taking her mother's frail hand in hers. Tears, hot and fresh, streamed down her face as she whispered, "Mama, I did it. You will be fine now, I promise." Her mother stirred faintly, too weak, too clouded by illness to fully comprehend the magnitude of Amara's sacrifice. But Amara, wiping her face quickly, offered a tremulous smile through her profound pain. The night had stolen something invaluable from her, yes, but in its cruel exchange, it had also granted her the key to save the one person she loved most fiercely in the world. The sun was already scorching by the time Amara emerged from the house with her mother. She hadn't slept a wink, the weight of the night's events and the precious envelope keeping her vigil by her mother's side until dawn. Now, it was time to make good on her sacrifice. Her mother's coughing fits were so severe, so alarming, that neighbors gathered, their heads shaking in pity and concern. "Take her to the hospital quickly," one old woman urged, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. "She is too weak to stay here." Amara nodded, though her legs felt like jelly, threatening to give way. She borrowed a worn wheelbarrow from a neighbor, patted it carefully with a soft cloth, and gently, with immense tenderness, laid her mother inside. With the help of 2 young boys, she began the arduous journey, pushing the wheelbarrow down the rough, dusty road. People watched as they passed, some offering whispered pity, others indulging in their usual gossip. Amara ignored them all. There was no shame left in her, only a singular burning purpose: to save her mother. At the hospital, nurses, their faces etched with professional urgency, rushed forward the moment they saw her mother's critical state. "Bring her here," one shouted, and they carefully transferred the weak woman onto a stretcher. Amara followed closely, the brown envelope, now a symbol of both salvation and profound loss, clutched tightly against her chest. In the doctor's office, the words she had feared most echoed once more. "You will have to deposit money before we can begin full treatment." Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope, spilling bundles of crisp notes onto the doctor's desk. The doctor raised his eyebrows, a flicker of surprise in his gaze. Amara offered no explanation for the sudden influx of wealth. She simply pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. "Please, just save my mother." The nurses moved with swift efficiency, placing her mother on a drip, diligently checking her heartbeat and arranging for a battery of tests. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Amara felt a fragile spark of hope ignite within her. She sat outside the ward, staring blankly at the pristine white walls, the steady, rhythmic beep of machines, a calming presence in the chaos of her mind. The landlord's threats, the gnawing hunger, the profound shame of the previous night, all of it faded into the background in that moment. What truly mattered was that her mother was finally in safe hands. Hours later, the doctor emerged, a reassuring smile on his face. "She is responding well," he announced, his words like a balm to Amara's raw nerves. "With the right drugs and rest, she should recover." Tears, silent and abundant, streamed down Amara's face. She pressed her hands together, a quiet prayer of gratitude escaping her lips. "Thank you, Lord." That night, she sat vigil by her mother's hospital bed, watching her chest rise and fall with a newfound, peaceful rhythm. She held her hand, offering a weak, tear-stained smile. "Mama, you'll be fine now. I kept my promise." Her mother's eyes fluttered open slightly, and she attempted to speak, but Amara gently shook her head. "Don't talk. Just rest. Everything will be okay." When the nurses brought food, Amara carefully, lovingly fed her mother spoon by spoon. The woman swallowed, still weak, but undeniably alive. Amara's heart soared, a fragile bird taking flight after a long imprisonment. Outside, as she went to buy soap and water, a few people stared, their gazes lingering with curiosity and veiled suspicion. Some whispered, "Where did she suddenly get money?" But Amara kept walking, her eyes fixed on the ground, oblivious to their gossip. They could talk all they wanted, only she knew the heavy, unbearable price she had paid. Days turned into weeks, and her mother's strength, slowly but surely, began to return. The raging fever subsided, the persistent cough softened, and a healthy color bloomed once more on her cheeks. One glorious morning she managed to sit up on her own, leaning against the pillows, a faint smile gracing her lips. "My daughter," she said weakly, her eyes brimming with love and gratitude. "You saved me." Amara forced a smile in return, squeezing her mother's hand. "Yes, Mama, that's all that matters." But deep inside, her heart remained heavy, a constant reminder of the profound cost of her actions. She had saved her mother's life, but at the irreversible expense of her own innocence. It was a secret, a heavy, isolating burden. She knew she would have to carry alone, for she could never, ever tell her mother the full, agonizing truth. When the doctor announced that her mother would soon be discharged, Amara felt a complex mix of relief and an unsettling dread. Relief because she had succeeded in her desperate mission, but fear, a cold, insidious tendril, began to creep into her heart, fear of what the future held. Money, she knew, always ran out, and secrets, no matter how deeply buried, rarely remained hidden forever. That night, as she sat by the hospital bed, she whispered to herself, the question a desperate plea in the silence of the ward, "I did the right thing, didn't I?" But the quiet, sterile walls offered no answer, only an echoing void. For now, all she could do was watch her mother breathe easier, her chest rising and falling with renewed strength, and tell herself over and over that it had all been worth it. Weeks passed, and Amara's mother grew steadily stronger, her vitality returning with each passing day. The hospital finally discharged her, and she returned home with more energy and vigor than Amara had witnessed in months. Neighbors who had once whispered with suspicion now showered Amara with praise, commending her as a good, dutiful daughter. Some, unable to contain their curiosity, even dared to ask, "How did you suddenly find the money, Amara?" But Amara merely offered a faint, enigmatic smile and replied, "God made a way." Life, with its relentless, indifferent rhythm, slowly began to creak back to a semblance of normalcy. Her mother, regaining her strength, began to cook small meals again, and occasionally the sweet sound of laughter would fill their tiny room. For a fleeting while, Amara allowed herself to believe that the immense sacrifice she had made had indeed been worth every agonizing moment. She convinced herself that she could carry the burden of her secret forever, as long as her mother lived, healthy and content. But fate, in its cruel unpredictability, had another devastating blow in store. A few months later, things began to shift, subtly at first. Amara started feeling weak, a profound, inexplicable exhaustion that settled deep in her bones. At first, she dismissed it as stress, a natural consequence of her relentless efforts. "I'm just working too hard," she told herself, trying to rationalize the creeping fatigue. But soon, the weakness intensified, becoming a pervasive, debilitating force. She began to lose weight, her once vibrant skin taking on a dull, ashen pallor. Small fevers, fleeting yet persistent, came and went, leaving her drained and disoriented. One morning, she awoke with her body racked by uncontrollable chills, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. Her mother, now stronger and more attuned to Amara's well-being, worriedly touched her forehead and gasped, "Amara, you are burning with fever. We must go to the hospital." Amara tried to protest, a deep-seated fear preventing her from voicing her true anxieties, but her mother, insistent and resolute, would not be swayed. They borrowed transport money from a kind neighbor and hurried to the local clinic. The doctor, his expression professional yet concerned, examined Amara thoroughly, ordered a series of tests, and instructed her to wait. Amara sat on the hard bench outside, her hands shaking, her mind a whirlwind of silent prayers, begging God for good news, for a reprieve from this new, terrifying uncertainty. After what felt like an agonizing eternity, the doctor called her into his office. He removed his glasses, his face uncharacteristically serious, the weight of his words already palpable. "Amara," he began slowly, his voice gentle but firm, "the results are back. You tested positive for HIV." The word struck her like a heavy, crushing stone, knocking the very breath from her lungs. For a moment, the world ceased to exist. "HIV," she stammered, her lips trembling uncontrollably, the syllables foreign and terrifying on her tongue. "Yes," the doctor confirmed softly, "but listen to me carefully, Amara. HIV is not the end. With treatment, with proper medical care, you can still live a long and full life." But Amara barely registered his words. The room spun wildly around her, a sickening vortex, and hot, stinging tears spilled down her face. All she could think of was that night, the opulent room, the cold indifference of the billionaire, the unspeakable price she had paid. She buried her face in her palms, her body racked by deep, guttural sobs. "Why me, God? Why me?" The doctor, his compassion evident, gently pushed a box of tissues towards her. "It's not the end, Amara," he reiterated, his voice a soothing balm against her despair. "Many people live with HIV today. You can too. You will need to start antiretroviral drugs. They will keep the virus under control, allowing you to live a healthy life." But Amara shook her head, unable to grasp the enormity of it all, unable to believe a single word of hope. She felt dirty, cursed, utterly hopeless. The shame of that one fateful night, a burden she had tried so desperately to rationalize and suppress, now grew heavier than ever, threatening to consume her entirely. The truth, a venomous serpent, had finally revealed itself. When she returned home, her mother, her face etched with anxiety, immediately asked, "What did the doctor say, Amara? Is everything all right?" Amara forced a tremulous smile, the lie a bitter taste in her mouth. "He said I just need rest and some medicine, Mama. Nothing serious." But inside, she was shattering into a million irreparable pieces. Each night she cried silently on her mat, hugging herself tightly, as if to physically hold her broken fragments together. She simply could not tell her mother the truth. Not after everything she had endured, everything she had sacrificed to save her. As the days bled into weeks, her body grew noticeably weaker, her frame growing thinner, her eyes sinking deeper into their sockets, her skin pale and translucent. Neighbors, ever observant, began to notice. Soon the whispers, those insidious serpents of judgment, started once more when she passed. They pointed at her emaciated form, their voices hushed but audible. Children, cruel in their innocence, laughed and called her names. One woman, bolder and more malicious than the rest, even declared loudly for all to hear, "That girl has wasted away. Who knows what kind of life she was living?" The gossip, sharper and more painful than before, cut deep into her already wounded soul. She stopped going out, stopped visiting the market she had once navigated with such determined purpose. She stayed indoors most days, hiding from the world, from its scrutinizing gaze, from the unbearable shame. Her mother, now stronger but infinitely worried, begged her to talk, to share her burden, but Amara would only shake her head, offering the same hollow assurances. "I'm fine, Mama, don't worry." But she was far from fine. She was drowning in a sea of fear, shame, and suffocating loneliness. The secret she carried, now intertwined with the terrifying reality of her diagnosis, was heavier than ever, a monumental weight threatening to drag her down into the depths of despair. Late one night, lying awake on her mat, her body aching, her mind racing, She whispered to herself, the words barely audible in the silent darkness. "I saved Mama's life, but I destroyed my own." Amara's sickness, however, could no longer be confined to the privacy of her home. Her deteriorating health, the stark changes in her appearance, were too profound to escape public notice. She had grown gaunt, her eyes hollow, her skin pale and drawn. The whispers in the neighborhood intensified, growing bolder, more accusatory. One morning, as she walked with a bucket of water from the well, she tried to join two women washing clothes nearby, seeking a fleeting moment of connection. But as she approached, they quickly, almost instinctively, moved their basins away, a palpable barrier of fear and revulsion forming between them. One of them muttered audibly, "Be careful. She has that sickness." The words, though quiet, pierced Amara's heart like shards of glass. She dropped her bucket, the water splashing around her feet, and fled back home, her eyes streaming with tears, the shame and unbearable weight. From that day forward, she stopped trying to engage with people. She became a prisoner in her own home, terrified of the stares, the gossip, the crushing weight of her shame. Her mother, though stronger physically, worried constantly, her pleas echoing through the small house. "Amara, talk to me. Don't let people's words kill your spirit." But Amara would only shake her head, retreating further into herself. Inside, she felt like her life was irrevocably over. Days bled into weeks, and her loneliness, a constant gnawing companion, grew heavier. She stopped attending church, the sanctuary she once found there now tainted by her secret. She stopped going to the market, the vibrant hub of her former life. Even when her mother gently encouraged her, she found no courage, no desire to step outside. The world outside her door felt like an angry, judging mob. Then one evening, as she sat quietly, lost in her despair in front of the house, a familiar voice, a ghost from her past, called her name. "Amara!" The sound startled her, making her lift her head. It was Enoy, an old school friend carrying a bag of provisions. Enoy's eyes widened in shock as she took in Amara's emaciated appearance. "What happened to you?" she asked, her voice laced with genuine concern. Amara forced a weak, strained smile. "I'm just tired, Enoy." Enoy studied her carefully, her gaze unwavering, then gently took Amara's hand. "This is not just tiredness, Amara. Tell me the truth." Amara's lips trembled. She wanted to maintain her silence, to keep her secret buried, but something in Enoy's compassionate eyes felt safe, felt trustworthy. She whispered, the words barely audible, "I have HIV." Enoy didn't flinch. She didn't pull back her hand, didn't frown in disgust, didn't walk away in fear. She simply squeezed Amara's hand tighter, a gesture of profound empathy and acceptance. "My aunt has HIV too," Enoy revealed, her voice calm and steady. "She has been living with it for more than 10 years. She is healthy, even working." Amara blinked in disbelief, a flicker of something she hadn't felt in months. Hope, stirring within her. 10 years? How? Enoy, seeing the nascent hope in Amara's eyes, explained, "There's a counseling group here in town, Amara. They meet every week. They help people like you, teach you how to take the drugs, how to live a normal life, how to overcome the fear. You don't have to stay like this." Amara shook her head, her deep-seated anxieties resurfacing. "People will see me there. They will know." Enoy's voice, though gentle, was firm. "People already talk, Amara. Let them. What matters is your life, your health. You are not alone. Please, let me take you there." The next day, Enoy kept her promise, a beacon of unwavering support. She led Amara to a small, unassuming community hall. Inside, chairs were arranged in a welcoming circle. Men and women of all ages sat together, chatting openly, their voices filled with a surprising lightness. Some looked strong, others still carried the physical marks of their struggle, but in their eyes, Amara saw something profound: courage. A warm-looking woman, her face radiating kindness, welcomed Amara. "You are new here," she said gently, her smile instantly putting Amara at ease. "Don't worry, my dear. HIV is not the end of life. With treatment, you can live long. You can still work, dream, even have children. You will see." Amara sat quietly as the meeting began, her senses overwhelmed by the unexpected atmosphere of acceptance and understanding. One man shared his story, describing how he had once been so consumed by despair that he contemplated taking his own life. Yet years later, he was alive, thriving, working, and raising 2 healthy children. A young woman spoke of finding love again, even after her diagnosis, her voice filled with a quiet joy. Laughter, genuine and unrestrained, occasionally filled the room, something Amara never, in her wildest dreams, expected in a place like this. For the first time in months, she didn't feel cursed. She didn't feel utterly alone. She realized with a profound sense of relief that there were others carrying the same heavy burden, and yet they were still living, still fighting, still finding joy. That night, back at home, Amara bravely told her mother about the group. Her mother, initially overwhelmed with tears, eventually held Amara tightly, her embrace a silent promise of unwavering support. "If this gives you hope, my daughter, then hold on to it. I will stand by you, always." As Amara lay on her mat that night, a tiny, fragile seed of hope began to sprout in her heart, and she whispered to herself, "Maybe my story is not finished yet." The counseling group quickly became Amara's second family, a safe harbor in the storm of her life. At first, she sat quietly at the meetings, simply listening, absorbing the stories and wisdom of others. But as the weeks unfolded, a nascent courage began to stir within her, and she started talking too, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. She shared her deepest fears, the terror of dying young, of never marrying, of the agonizing thought of never being able to have children. The counselor, a beacon of unwavering hope, always met her fears with a warm, reassuring smile and the same powerful message. "My dear, HIV is not the end. With your drugs, your body can be strong. You can live for many, many years. You can marry. You can even have children who are free from the virus. Do not lose hope." Hearing those words, reiterated with such conviction and empathy, began to slowly, painstakingly heal Amara's shattered mind. Slowly, she started taking her medicine diligently, on time, every time. She began to eat well, nourishing her body as well as her spirit, and meticulously followed the advice offered by the counselors. Her body, once frail and fading, grew stronger, and a faint, healthy glow returned to her face. Even her mother noticed the profound change. "Amara, you are looking like yourself again," she said one morning, her eyes shining with relief and gratitude. At the meetings, Amara met others who lived with the virus, individuals who, like her, were navigating the complex landscape of stigma and hope. One of them was a young man named Cheeky. He was tall, with a gentle demeanor and a soft, comforting voice. Like Amara, he too had carried the immense weight of shame at first, withdrawing from the world. But through the unwavering support of the counseling group, he had learned to stand tall again, to reclaim his dignity. One day, after a particularly impactful meeting, Cheeky walked with Amara down the dusty road, the setting sun casting long shadows before them. "You know," he said, a warm smile gracing his lips, "when I first found out my status, I honestly thought life had ended. I even locked myself indoors for months, convinced there was no future for me. But here I am, still alive, still dreaming, still finding purpose." Amara looked at him, surprised by the candor and openness in his voice. "You mean you don't feel cursed anymore?" He shook his head emphatically. Not at all, Amara. HIV is just a condition. It is not who I am. I am more than the sickness, and you are too. Those words, so simple yet so profound, resonated deep within Amara's heart, striking a chord she hadn't known existed. For the very first time, she truly believed she was more than the catastrophic mistake of one night, more than the malicious whispers of her neighbors. She was still a person, still worthy of love, still capable of happiness. As the weeks gently turned into months, she and Cheeky grew closer. He often called to check if she had taken her drugs, a simple gesture that spoke volumes of his care. Sometimes he visited, bringing fresh fruit or a home-cooked meal, small acts of kindness that warmed her soul. They laughed together, shared their deepest fears, and, most importantly, encouraged one another, building a bond forged in shared vulnerability and newfound strength. One evening, as they sat beneath a sprawling tree near the meeting hall, the air thick with the scent of evening blooms, Cheeky turned to Amara, his voice soft but unwavering. "Amara," he began, his gaze steady, "I like you. I know we both carry the same condition, but I truly believe we can walk this road together, side by side. Will you allow me to be a part of your life?" Amara's heart skipped a beat, a joyous flutter she hadn't thought possible. She'd never dared to imagine that anyone could ever love her, not after everything she had been through. Tears, hot and uncontrollable, welled up in her eyes. "Cheeky," she choked out. "Are you sure? I am broken." He shook his head gently, taking her hand in his. "No, Amara, you are not broken. You are strong, you are beautiful, and I want to stand with you." That night, Amara couldn't sleep, but this time it was not from despair. She replayed his words in her mind, a comforting lullaby, and smiled, a genuine, radiant smile she hadn't worn in what felt like an eternity. Love, in its most unexpected and profound form, had found her. Her mother, ever perceptive, also noticed the quiet joy radiating from Amara. "This Cheeky, he looks like a good man," she teased one day when he visited, her eyes twinkling with approval. Amara blushed, a natural reaction she hadn't felt in years, but she didn't deny it. With time, their bond deepened, growing richer and more resilient. Amara learned more about herself, discovering with each passing day that an HIV diagnosis did not equate to a sentence of hopelessness. The counseling group, with its endless wellspring of wisdom and support, taught her how to dream again, how to plan for a future, how to truly live. And Cheeky, with his unwavering love and belief in her, gave her the courage to believe she still deserved happiness, that her story was far from over. As they walked home one evening, hand in hand, Cheeky looked at her, his eyes filled with a shared vision. "One day," he said, his voice soft but firm, "when we are truly ready, we can even marry. Don't let fear stop us, Amara. Life is not finished." Amara squeezed his hand, her eyes bright with fresh tears, but these were tears of hope, of profound gratitude. "Yes," she whispered, her voice filled with a newfound conviction. "Life is not finished." Months flowed into years, and Amara's life, once a landscape of despair, began a miraculous transformation. With her rigorous adherence to her medication and the consistent support of her counseling group, her physical strength returned, accompanied by a profound inner resilience. She smiled more often, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. She helped her mother with household chores, her movements light and purposeful, and against all odds, she even returned to selling her wares at the market, no longer consumed by shame. The same neighbors who had once whispered and pointed now watched in open surprise, their initial judgment slowly morphing into admiration. Amara was alive, thriving, and crucially, she was no longer hiding. Her relationship with Cheeky deepened, blossoming into a love story built on mutual understanding and shared purpose. They attended the counseling group together, their presence a testament to the power of unity, encouraging each other through every challenge. They even began to seriously discuss marriage, envisioning a future together, a future once deemed impossible. Amara's heart, once a cavern of fear, now pulsed with unwavering hope. But while her personal life was healing and flourishing, the past, unbidden and brutal, had not entirely disappeared. News began to ripple across the city, then spread like wildfire. The billionaire, the very man who had given Amara money that night, the architect of her profound sacrifice, had been arrested. It was discovered through a painstaking investigation that he had systematically taken advantage of numerous desperate young women, exploiting their vulnerability for his own perverse gratification. Worse still, the police revealed a chilling truth. He had known he was HIV positive for years, yet had continued to engage in unprotected sexual encounters with these vulnerable women, sowing seeds of destruction and despair. Newspapers emblazoned his story across their front pages, and his face, now stripped of its veneer of power and respectability, appeared on the evening news. When Amara saw it, her heart raced, a chaotic drum against her ribs. She sat frozen, transfixed by the image, her mother gasping softly beside her, recognizing the man. "That man," her mother whispered, her voice laced with a mixture of shock and disgust. Amara looked down, a wave of familiar shame washing over her, but beneath it, a surprising surge of relief. At least now, the world would know the truth about him. It wasn't just her. There were many, many others like her, victims of his cruel predation. The government, spurred by the public outcry and the sheer scale of the billionaire's crimes, launched a wide-ranging public campaign. This initiative was multifaceted. It aimed to combat the pervasive stigma surrounding HIV/AIDS, but crucially, it also sought to expose and prosecute men who exploited vulnerable women, advocating for justice and protection. To Amara's astonishment, she received an invitation to share her story, to lend her voice to this vital cause. At first, she hesitated, the fear of public judgment still a potent adversary. "I can't stand in front of people, Cheeky," she confessed, her voice trembling. But he took her hand, his gaze firm and reassuring. "Amara, your voice can heal others. You survived, and you found courage within yourself that many can only dream of. Don't hide it. Your experience is a testament to resilience." Her mother, now a fierce advocate for her daughter, also encouraged her. "My daughter, don't be ashamed. What you suffered is not your fault. Speak so that others will not fall into the same trap, so that no other mother has to watch her daughter make such a sacrifice." "And so?" Amara agreed. The first time she stood on a public stage, her hands shook uncontrollably, her voice barely a whisper. A hall full of young, expectant faces watched her, their collective gaze both daunting and hopeful. She began to tell her story, simply, honestly, without embellishment. She spoke of how crushing poverty had pushed her to one desperate, agonizing night, how that unthinkable sacrifice had saved her mother's life, and how, in the cruel aftermath, she discovered she had contracted HIV. She spoke of the profound shame, the relentless gossip, the suffocating loneliness that had almost consumed her. But then, her voice gaining strength, she also spoke of hope. How unwavering counseling, life-saving medicine, and the transformative power of love had given her life back, had allowed her to reclaim her identity and purpose. By the time she finished, the hall was enveloped in a profound silence, a testament to the power of her raw honesty. Then, slowly, tentatively, people began to clap. Some stood, a silent ovation. Others openly wept, touched by her vulnerability and strength. That day, Amara realized, with a clarity that resonated deep within her soul, that her pain had not been in vain. It had transformed into an undeniable, empowering force. Soon, Amara's story reached wider, more international platforms. The World Health Organization, WHO's, recognizing the profound impact of her testimony, invited her to become a brand ambassador in the global fight against HIV and the insidious stigma that still clung to it. Her face, once hidden in shame, now appeared on powerful posters, a symbol of hope and resilience. She traveled to schools and communities, sharing her journey, teaching people that an HIV diagnosis was not the end of life, and that those who lived with it deserved dignity, respect, and compassion, not judgment. Her relationship with Chicky continued to blossom, a beautiful testament to enduring love. They often stood side by side at events, speaking together, their voices a powerful chorus of hope. They dreamed of marriage, of building a future together, and though they knew challenges would undoubtedly lie ahead, their hearts were filled with an unshakable optimism. Her mother, now completely healthy, looked at her daughter with immeasurable pride. "Amara," she often said, her voice thick with emotion, "I thought I would die in sickness, but you saved me, and now, my precious daughter, you are saving others." Amara's journey is a profound narrative, a vivid tapestry woven with threads of desperation, sacrifice, profound suffering, and ultimately, triumphant resilience. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in, the crushing weight of systemic poverty, the vulnerability of those caught in its grip, and the insidious nature of exploitation that preys on such desperation. It is a stark reminder that beneath the surface of seemingly simple choices often lie unfathomable complexities, born from a desperate battle for survival. But Amara's story is also a powerful testament to the indomitable strength of the human spirit. It teaches us the critical importance of empathy, the ability to truly see and understand the impossible dilemmas faced by others, rather than rushing to judgment. Her journey from isolation and shame to advocacy and leadership underscores the transformative power of community, of finding connection and support in the darkest of times. It highlights the life-saving impact of knowledge and medical advancements in managing conditions like HIV, challenging outdated stigmas, and replacing fear with facts. Most importantly, Amara's story is a resounding call for compassion, for justice, and for the unwavering belief that even after the most profound losses, one can rebuild, find purpose, and become a beacon of hope for others. It is a vivid illustration that dignity, once seemingly lost, can be reclaimed, and that the greatest strength often emerges not from avoiding pain, but from confronting it, surviving it, and ultimately transforming it into a force for good. Her life, once nearly destroyed by a single desperate night, now shines as a testament to the enduring power of hope, resilience, and the courageous human spirit.